Hey, folks. Welcome to another episode of the Building Great Experiences podcast with me, Drew, your host. Today's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to be doing the first of a new series where it's like Fireside Chats and going to be talking a little bit about latest and greatest in AI, current thoughts and perspectives on customer experience, and just in general, like where I think things are going. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about a recent update or announcement from OpenAI's Dev Day. About a week or so ago, they showcased some really cool new features. One of them was their apps SDK, which basically means you can build applications directly within kind of ChatGPT. So for example, they demoed Coursera, they demoed Spotify, they demoed a few other things. And pretty cool because if you think about it, it allows users, people, to interact with the things that they want to do in the platform, right? So they don't have to go anywhere. They can just kind of do it all in one place. And then the other big thing that they announced was what they're calling Agent Builder or Agent Kit. Essentially, it's not necessarily a new thing, but it's allowing people to go in and kind of build out a custom agent, and they can have it do different activities and tasks. They've had their general agent or GPT agent for a few months now, but that was kind of a general purpose agent. This is more specifically for custom trained agents for different types of purposes, and you can try to chain them together. And so why I think this matters and why I think this is a big deal is ChatGPT is widely used. It's pretty much like, the front runner in terms of like general population's awareness of AI stuff, right? People are starting to use the words like, did you GPT it, right? Instead of Google it. And so I think with these new capabilities, it's going to change the paradigm of the general population, right? They're going to start to think about things in terms of agents. They're going to start to think about things in terms of, why do I have to go use your app or download your app? Why can't I just do it here in GPT or Claude or Gemini? And I think that signals a bigger shift that's coming, which is something that I've talked about before on the podcast and talked about online, is this notion that basically, if you're a SaaS company, you should be very quickly trying to set up your data to be an MCP server to connect into these platforms. I think people are going to stop, or I guess shift their usage patterns from doing things in your app to doing things in these AI tools. And they're going to expect that they're going to be able to hook into your information to do whatever it is they're trying to do. And they're also going to expect to be able to use your application within that context. So it's pretty fascinating. It kind of creates an interesting set of questions that I've been talking about with my team, which is like, okay, how do we get ahead of this? Like, we obviously we're not there yet, but it is a signal of a bigger paradigm shift that's coming. And we want to make sure that we're not just kind of continuing to do what we've always done, and we don't want to continue to recommend what we've been recommending to clients. So like, what does this mean for the next, call it 12 to 18 months? Like, what are the things that we need to be doing or building? The other question is, like, how do we need to be scaling up ourselves and our clients on like how to use these things, right? We've primarily been using tools like N8N, Zapier, Lindy, and others that kind of like build little agents for different purposes. Now that it's accessible in a ChatGPT, and I'm sure, Google's going to have their version and Claude's going to have its version, and everybody's going to kind of start adding their flavor of this. Like, how do we educate and equip our clients to do that? And then the other thing is just thinking in general, like, if the world moves to kind of an app-less universe, what does it look like to build digital products in that environment? I think we're going to be probably solving different types of usability issues. We're going to be thinking about different types of ways that the interface and experience kind of interacts with people. I think a lot of stuff is actually going to start to be done for you, right? Like, if you're building an agent and it's kind of doing things on your behalf, like, do you even need to interact with an app? Do you even really need to ask the question? Like, if it's proactively learning your behaviors and solving your problems, maybe not, right? So anyway, really, really kind of interesting. I've been kind of talking with a lot of folks and just in general about how to start to get ahead of that. And a lot of the things that I've been sharing with folks is like, they should be spending time and money on building MCP servers that connect to their data. They should be working towards at least internally being able to talk to their data, talk to their docs, right? Allow your employees and your teammates to do their job more efficiently without having to, go search, find, and sort filter for whatever it is they're trying to do to do their job. It's a really great place to start. So that's something, just in general, like a topic that's on my mind, something I've been kind of pondering. Something else I've been thinking about is this idea that as we go to this space and there's like this AI battle that's happening, it reminds me a lot of like the browser wars from whatever 20 something years ago, where you had Microsoft, Mozilla Firefox, Chrome, Safari, like all these different browsers were kind of competing for who would be the browser. Because I knew if you control the browser, you control the internet and you control the attention. And as these large language models become kind of more powerful, more capable, have these other sort of features and everything starts to fold into that, that's going to really influence like massively, like just how companies like make money. Like I think we're going to have to think different about our pricing models, pricing structures. So like, for example, if you're a company that offers a digital product, right, like a SaaS or something like that, and today you're charging, usually people charge like per seat license costs, or you have like kind of an annual contract or monthly contract or something like that. And depending on what kind of size organization you are, that is now accessible within the context of this other thing, ChatGPT, for example. How are you going to charge for that? How are you going to make money off of that? How are you going to monetize and commercialize that? It's a very different mindset, different paradigm of how to make money. I think like I've done some kind of like pondering and reading and talked to other people about this, but one of the biggest like kind of challenges to figure out is with this shift to kind of like app-less world, or I guess like app living within some, within a GPT or a Claude or Gemini, you're going to have this inevitable like hurdle of, okay, they're kind of like controlling the attention and they're kind of controlling the consumption, right? So like, let's say, for example, let's say that you have, user hitting your data via an API or an MCP server, meaning like, it's like they're, using your stuff, and OpenAI increases the cost, right, of credits or tokens or whatever. If you've got a fixed price for how much this costs, now, your price is this, but you have a variable cost of like on the back end, you could get upside down really quickly. So I think there's a lot of things to think about just in terms of like how you commercialize, how you price, like all of that. That's like strategically you have to really think about. That's going to be really important. Shifting gears a little bit, I wanted to talk about something interesting I've been observing recently, which is around kind of like change experience and sort of people stuff. So I actually think that's like probably like a bigger need, opportunity, pain point, whatever you want to call it. We've been working with several companies recently in the mid-market, and it's interesting because like a lot of the work that we're doing is not necessarily on like building stuff. Like that's almost like becoming easier. It's the like thinking about how do we roll this out effectively? How do we get people to actually like understand what AI can do and like kind of change their paradigm, but also like recognize it's like it's not perfect. It's not, we're not at AGI, artificial general intelligence yet, but also like, there's kind of this flip side where people are like, oh, AI is crap. It's not good. And really that's because they're not asking good questions. They're not prompting well, right? They're sort of just like one shot prompt, hey, do this thing. And then it doesn't do a good job because they didn't give it context. They didn't word the question well. They didn't sort of like clearly articulate what even they're trying to understand or what answer they're trying to get. And so it's like teaching people, it's like, just classic change management stuff, like teaching people how to use the new stuff, teaching them how to think about the new stuff, teaching them what's possible with the new stuff. Like that's a big area that I think a lot of companies should be thinking about more critically versus just kind of like turning on, oh, we have Enterprise GPT. Oh, we have Gemini. Oh, we have Copilot or whatever. And then just sort of like hoping that people will figure it out. And I actually think that a big part, there's this kind of recent set of articles that have come out about this notion of like work slop. Basically, like someone creates something using AI. They don't spend any time or energy really like analyzing or evaluating if it's good or not. And then they like send it on to somebody else to kind of deal with. So there's this sort of like argument that's being made like, oh, well, AI is not good because basically like a bunch of people are just like creating work slop that they're like pushing to someone else. So it's like maybe it takes them less time to create the output, but then someone else is having to spend more time like wrestling their way through the mess, right? And to that I say, yes, you're right, the work slopping does exist, but I think a reason for why it exists is because people aren't really being trained and equipped on like how to get better quality outputs and how to, I think, like break down or decompose whatever it is they're trying to do into kind of like chunks and like feed it to AI like step by step. Because you still have to do that. like there's still like a level of thinking required around how to break this up into pieces that I can delegate essentially to different AI tools, and kind of knowing enough about what different tools are good for so that you can say, I'm going to do this in this tool, and then I'm going to take that output, I'm going to give it to this tool, and I'm going to take that output. Like it's still manual-ish, but if you know how to do that, you can get significant kind of orders of magnitude of efficiency gains. But like there's kind of this perception, I think, that people have, which is I'm just going to like dump it in a Copilot or GPT or Gemini, and I'm just trying to do it all in one place and hope for the best, right? And like that's not really a good approach, in my opinion. So I think generally, like I think companies should be investing a lot more in just like teaching people what's possible, teaching people how to think about it, teaching people how to work with it, teaching people how to collaborate with it. A lot of these AI tools initially have been built for like consumer use or like individual use, and really only in like the last probably like 2 months. It's currently October of 2025. In the last 2 months, some of these tools have really started to roll out better collaboration features, like team collaboration features. Just as like a really quick example, like we have we have Gemini, we have Copilot, we have Claude, we have GPT, but GPT has kind of become our primary. We have a GPT for Business plan, and there's this concept of projects. Basically, like you have this project where you can like have all your threads related to a particular topic or project. For us, it's like client, right? So we have like a project for a client. Up until like within the last 4 to 6 weeks, like you couldn't share projects with other people, which is kind of silly, right? So you had this project that was for yourself, and it was great because it was like, oh, okay, cool. I can like have all of the things that are related, all the context that's related to this particular, in my case, client or project or whatever that I'm working on. GPT would kind of like contain everything in that project and like learn and sort of like inform and provide context to the other threads based on what's in that project. And the natural logical next thing is like, well, I want to share this project with somebody else so that we can work on it together, right? I'm going to add context in there together, and like couldn't do it. Literally couldn't do it until like a couple, 6 weeks ago or whatever. And so I think like now that those collaboration capabilities are being added, now that teams, you can more effectively work together in these tools, I think that's also something that like mental model shifting and change management, change experience, things that need to happen for companies to get the value, for like the work slop to go down, right? Is because it's like, it's easier to work together. It's easier to share and collaborate. Another example, we love Notebook LM, which is a part of like Google's AI studio, or their kind of like suite of AI stuff. It's in the like Gemini bucket. They are a really great tool because it's not just generating like text responses or like, kind of documents and stuff. You're able to create like other forms of media. So one of the like coolest ones is you can have, it's kind of this 3-panel UI. If you've ever used it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But if you haven't, basically on the left, you have kind of your sources, like whatever it is that you're sort of feeding to Gemini as context. In the middle, you have kind of your conversation, like where you're talking to it. And then on the right side, you have kind of these like artifacts that you're creating. And artifacts, they have like a bunch of different kinds, but like one of the coolest ones is like the podcast feature, which a lot of people know about. But basically you can have it create a podcast based on that context and you can share it with other people. So now instead of, let's say, for example, you have a project and you're trying to like ramp somebody up really quickly on like what's going on in the project, where are we at, whatever, based on like latest meeting transcripts or notes or documents or whatever, they can just listen to a 20-minute podcast that's AI generated and pretty darn good. And like, boom, knowledge transfer is like immediate. And you don't have to spend so much time and energy like getting them up to speed. They also create like videos, which kind of like AI generated videos that like tell the story about whatever it is, or like talk about a specific part of the context. It creates documents, it creates little like quizzes or whatever, like survey kind of thing. There's just like pretty cool. And again, I think it's just like people being aware of those capabilities, and then obviously like it being like within their organizational stack, like tech stack, so that they can actually use it and it be like protected data and not sort of like leaking anything out. But like just being aware of that, like I think it changes how people work, right? And the fact that you can share a notebook with other people on your team, like you couldn't do that before, like, not that long ago. It was like kind of like you had your own notebooks and it was just you and no one else could see it. One of the things, sort of side note, not to go on like a rabbit trail, but like something that really recently is made possible is you can actually link Google Docs in a notebook, and it doesn't have real-time sync, unfortunately, yet, but it has the ability to like, you can go and like sync sources. So before, what you had to do is you had to like static, like upload a bunch of stuff for it to have like, this is the knowledge that this like project or notebook is kind of like basing its responses off of. But was a bit of a pain point is like, you couldn't, like you had to manually upload or override those source docs. And now you can actually like connect it to a Google Doc or a Live Doc, and then you can like sync it, which opens up a whole lot of other opportunities and use cases. So for example, we are now setting up where we use a tool called Fathom for all of our like meeting transcripts and notes, and our whole team uses it, and it's like really great. And we're able to make all meeting transcripts from, you know, for a given client or project automatically go into a Google Doc that's then linked in a notebook. And then essentially you can talk to the project, right? You can like, instead of having to go hunt through a bunch of meeting notes, you can just go do, you know, go be like, ask whatever you want. You can do this in other tools. We also use Notion. Notion has what they call Notion AI. Obviously, like they all have some basic names, but under the hood, it's got Claude, it's got GPT-5, and everything that you put in Notion, you can just talk to it, which is really, really cool. And so you can kind of talk to your project, talk to your data, talk to your notes. And a lot of these tools have this capability, but the pain point before was like they didn't all kind of like work together and connect, and you couldn't share with the other people easily or like collaborate where they're putting in stuff, you're putting in stuff, and everybody's kind of like shared knowledge hub. So anyway, I think like all of that to say, going back to the original point, people just need to like know that you can do this now, right? And really, it's just been in the last few months that a lot of these things have started to be possible. And so I think like that's where companies should be investing time, is thinking about how are we helping our people really understand what's capable and what's possible now? And that's not like a point in time. Like this stuff is changing so rapidly. You probably need to make it like on a regular cadence. Maybe it's a monthly sort of like letting people know what's possible now, like what's the latest and greatest. Because, you know, people get overwhelmed by what they see on LinkedIn and Instagram and et cetera, like all the different channels and feeds. It's hard to keep up, you know, and that's one of the pieces of feedback I've heard is they're like, well, Drew, you like eat, sleep, breathe this stuff all day long. That's great, but like I can't keep up, you know. And to that I say, like, you're right, it's hard to keep up. What would I think be helpful is for there to be kind of a regular cadence, like have champions in your organization that are kind of like, they care about this stuff. They're you know, they geek out on it like I do, and kind of equip and empower those people to kind of set up a recurring cadence where they're like educating and teaching and showing people, like not just like talking about it, but like showing people like, here, I'm going to build an agent, right, for this purpose, and like show other people how to do it, and like make it a use case that's actually like going to drive real value right now. You know, because it's sometimes I think people kind of are like, oh, it's kind of like this, and they like kind of wave their hand a little bit, and they're like, no, just like open up N8N or open up now GPT, the agent builder, and like make a very small, short, tiny agent. Just like all it does is like take your meeting transcripts or notes and like automatically write follow-up emails in your voice and tone, or in the voice and tone of your team or whatever, and just do that and start with that. And then like, okay, great, we got that. And now everybody knows how to do that. Now like apply that same thing to other recurring, repeated manual stuff that you're doing all day, every day. And like remove that effort, remove that time, and just do it. You know, get in the habit of doing that. Build these tiny kind of small agents for yourself. Something else I wanted to talk about is a lot of people are thinking about like as just like an efficiency thing, right? And you know, it's at StealthX, and like personally, I think like that's good, right? Like AI is going to make everybody better at the job. It's gonna make things faster and easier, right? It is going to help you drive efficiency. But what I think is almost more important is like, do that stuff. It's table stakes, status quo. We're quickly like, there's this sort of small window of time that's rapidly decreasing where like that will be any kind of competitive advantage. We're going to be turning the corner pretty fast where it's going to become like just table stakes. Like you're just going to have AI tools so that you can keep up, right, with the market. So do that, and be thinking about what is your kind of differentiator from a brand and experience perspective, right? And like what is going to build deep trust with your customer. That I think not enough people are kind of paying credence to that or thinking about that right now. There's just like this general sort of like fear. Well, first of all, there's like the people who are sticking their head in the sand and being like, AI is not happening. There's people who are like leaning in kind of, and they're sort of just like, yeah, I use GPT sometimes. And there's people who are like, oh my gosh, this is changing everything, like me. And like, they're trying to like, iterate and improve as fast as possible. But like, even still, it's a lot of it's just focused on efficiency. And I think like you should do those things, but also really be thinking about like in a world where AI is driving efficiency everywhere, the thing that's going to matter most is like, do you have a differentiated, unique, and memorable brand and experience that people trust, right? And so like, what are the investments you're making now that are going to help you on that journey, right? Like, what are the things that you need to do in 2025 as, the year is quickly is approaching an end? What are you going to do to be kind of ahead of that curve or ahead of that trend, right? Like, for example, if you're a manufacturing B2B company, right, it's probably easy to be like, well, we don't need to invest in that. Like, we just need to help it, we need to use AI to help our supply chain be more efficient. And then again, you should do that. And I would strongly recommend thinking about like, even in a B2B world and even in like an industry like manufacturing or others, like there's still people on the other side that you're selling to, right? And so what are you going to do that's different or unique or going to cultivate trust with those people that, others can't do or others won't do, right? Just because you give them fast and easy service doesn't necessarily mean they're going to stick around, right? So maybe keeping with the kind of like the example of a B2B manufacturing company, maybe you need to think about, okay, we're going to start to invest in-person, like client or customer appreciation type events that are going to have really unique kind of like thoughtful gifts and or kind of like, I don't know, just to make an example, let's say your B2B customer, if you're in manufacturing space, it's like there's this other business and I know the CEO loves the Panthers. I live in Charlotte, so, Carolina Panthers are here. So perhaps like a thoughtful gift that would build trust and rapport with that individual would be like setting up a one-on-one dinner with Luke Kuechly, right? Who is obviously retired now, but big Panther player for the Charlotte folks. And perhaps some form of like signature kind of like Panthers inspired gift from your company to, I don't know, whoever the buyer is. Maybe it's not the CEO. Maybe it's like maybe it's the procurement officer, right? Whoever it is that is like kind of making buying decisions, whatever that individual cares about, like think about like, how do we stand out in this person's mind? How do we like stay top of mind? How do we create a strong, trusting, loyal relationship with them that's more than just like, hey, we deliver the thing quickly? Like that's going to become a commodity. It already is, honestly. And then you think about like other businesses, right? If you're a consumer, it's still true, right? Like you're obviously not going to go like for every consumer, like have them have a sit down dinner with Luke Kuechly, but what are the things that you are going to do that are going to make that experience memorable and unique and valuable for them? And how are you going to make sure that it's differentiated in their mind and that you're really cultivating that trust? And that maybe that's, let's say that you're a consumer brand, right? That sells some sort of retail product. I don't know. Maybe it's like you sell sort of consumable food, right? Like a bag of chips. I don't know. You're selling chips to people in store, right? Well, there's kind of the like, how do you make sure the distributors remember you and put you on the shelves and those kinds of things? And there's a lot of the sort of B2B stuff that I just mentioned that you can do to kind of like cultivate that relationship. But also on the consumer side, think about like in-store experience. Think about packaging experience. Think about the way you're kind of like showcasing your brand through storytelling, right? Think about how you're presenting the product through thought leaders and influencers and content creators, right? Like I think that already is happening now and it's only going to continue to become more important. You're going to have to think about these things in like niches, right? You're going to have, okay, keeping the example, like you're a chip brand or whatever product, right? Okay, who eats those chips, or what niches or sort of like subcultures of people like are currently enjoying those chips or typically eat those chips. Maybe these chips are like gluten-free, vegan, and perhaps they're like, I don't know, like no nitrates, low sugar, whatever, healthy. It's like, okay, well, where are those people? And who are the influencers that are kind of like guiding their buying behaviors and decisions? And how do you like start to partner with those people so you're in front of them all the time? And how do you make sure that like the product that you're providing Like, it's not just a bag with chips in it. It's something different, right? Like different shape, different, story. Like, tell the story behind the chips. Tell the story about like why you're doing what you're doing. Why should anyone care about your brand more than just like it's a good chip, right? So it's just, I think there's a lot of those kinds of things that people should be really thinking deeply about right now. Like, if I'm an executive in a, especially mid-sized company, or really any size company, but especially mid-size, like, you're going to get squished because you've got the enterprise who they can kind of sit back and chill, honestly, for a little while, because it's not going to really, AI is not going to tremendously disrupt them right this minute. And then you have the startups who, like, their main differentiator, their main competitive advantage is like speed. Like, you can go and innovate and iterate as fast as possible. And if you're in the middle, you are in a bad spot because your market share is eroding, your margins are eroding. The small guys are going to take your market share. The big guys can just like hold their, kind of hold until the sort of dust settles or whatever. And so if you're in the mid market, you really need to think about like, man, what is our strategy to stand out and to be memorable and to build loyalty and build trust? And like, how are we going to create a better experience for people? Because if you don't do that, honestly, don't know what happens. And I'm not trying to say this to be like fear mongering. Like, you probably will be able to ride it out. But I think there's a difference between survive and thrive. And like, really what I'm talking about here is not necessarily like fight for survival, but more of like, how do you thrive in an AI world? I think it's more than just we're doing things really efficiently. I think it is, we have a great experience that people trust and a brand that people trust. And we have a story behind what we do. And we're partnered with people who are passionate about whatever that space is. And we're like connecting with the community in the, this niche culture and we're at the nexus of that. And they associate this brand and our product and our service with their community, right? Like, you want to be there. That's where you want to be. That's where I believe you will thrive if you are in that kind of mid-sized company, or any company again, but like, especially for mid-market, I think it's going to be really, really critical that you're doing that. So this was the first of hopefully many Fireside Chats. I would love, leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you like the format. Also, if you have specific topics or questions or thoughts that you want to kind of ask, shoot me a note. And, you can reach me via LinkedIn. That's the best place. Go linkedin.com/Drew H. Burdick, or you can drewburdick.com. Also, little plug, we're getting ready to launch our AI immersion and it includes three things that we are doing for a lot of clients right now. One is what we call our AI North Star workshop. It's kind of this like couple hour session to help everybody, key stakeholders get together and really align on like, what is the North Star for using AI? And frankly, a lot of what I just talked about is kind of a part of that, right? How do you use it for efficiency? How do you drive growth, and how do you thrive? And then the other one we do is what we're calling our AI deep dive. And it's a full day session. We bring kind of key people together, and it's a combination of education and like helping people understand like what's possible and demos and things like that. Plus us kind of getting in the weeds with you and like actually developing like what are the use cases you should focus on, prioritizing those things based on effort and impact, and really kind of working together to build a quick and 90-day plan. And then our last one is our AI catalyst session. And that's all about, it's a 2-day session, and we're actually going to like make stuff. We're going to build like proofs of concepts and like agents to get you real value fast. And this is all about like helping you all kind of have the tools you need to be successful with AI in a very small window of time. So if you're interested, check it out. Go to stealthx.co/AI immersion to learn more. And you can always shoot me a personal note. I'd love to hear from you if you have any thoughts or ideas on the podcast. Also, check out the newsletter if you haven't. I post things like this every week on Sunday night at 9 p.m. So hopefully I see you there. Thanks, everybody. Like, comment,